The decline of the Silent Hill series has been an unfortunate one. Silent Hill once stood as the champion of psychological horror. Sadly, as the series went on, it became clear that many of the later releases struggled to keep their heads above water and match what made the games before it so special. Now, I personally have never been too involved with the series myself, but much of what I've heard about the decline of Silent Hill occurred with the disbandment of the individuals behind the creation of the first 4 games, Team Silent. Supposedly, Team Silent was disbanded by Konami after the creation of the 4th game, Silent Hill 4: The Room, wanting future entries to be created by Western developers. One of these Western developed titles, Silent Hill Homecoming, being what we'll be setting our sights on today. At the time of this recording, the last time I played Silent Hill Homecoming was about 8 or 9 years ago at this point. To be honest, when I first played through the game, I kinda liked it, but I've had no real desire to ever return to the game since that first playthrough all those years ago. Now that I'm older and hopefully wiser, I'm interested to give this game another look and see if my perception has changed after all this time. There's only one way to find out. Let's turn the page and take a look at Silent Hill Homecoming for the Xbox 360. Silent Hill Homecoming is a survival horror game where we play as Alex Shepard, a soldier returning from war after receiving an injury and spending some time in the hospital. Alex wakes up restrained to a gurney, being pushed through a dark, rustic-looking hospital. As he looks around, he sees something horrible is going on, witnessing various murders as he is pushed through the halls. Breaking free from his restraints, Alex then tries to find his way out. As he moves throughout the hospital, the place starts to twist and peel away as he's transported to the other world. It's also here that we see Josh, Alex's younger brother, but he acts distant and runs away as soon as the door in front of him opens. This is honestly a pretty strong opening. It immediately sets the tone for the game, and the sequences of leaving the hospital is well paced, offering some minor puzzles and combat situations. Unfortunately, this great setup is then kind of ruined when you reach your very first save point in the game, and it literally tells you that this is a nightmare. During what we now know to be a nightmare, Alex is transported to the other world, a twisted mirror of reality covered with blood and rust. And it's as we are taken to the other world that we are met with our first combat encounter. Normally in Silent Hill, the protagonists are not very skilled in using weapons, as oftentimes the protagonists are just everyday people. Their attacks lacked finesse and were often slow and a bit clumsy. However, since Alex is a soldier, he's incredibly skilled with weapons. His hands don't shake while using firearms, and he's able to perform dodge rolls to avoid attacks. This decision to make Alex so skilled in combat was a huge mistake. Because Alex can proficiently handle most fights that come his way, any encounter with an enemy just isn't scary. The camera enters this typical close-up over-the-shoulder position as Alex smacks around the monster in front of him, with no tension to be found. Also, the very first weapon you get is a knife, and honestly, you don't need any other weapon after that. You are given other weapons as you progress through the game, such as a steel pipe and an axe, with each of these weapons being slower but deal more damage. I didn't use any of these other weapons unless it was mandatory. The knife's speed is far better than the increase to damage, since you can perform attacks so quickly without giving most enemies time to attack. And you really don't want to be attacked by enemies in this game. Homecoming provides so little health items for the amount of damage enemies can deal to you. A lot of these enemies can stun Alex briefly after hitting him, which can lead to situations where the enemies just start to wail on you and get so much damage in before you're even given a chance to move again. To be blunt, the combat in this game isn't fun. For the most part, you're just performing the exact same attack string on enemy after enemy, and it makes the monsters you encounter just not scary, making the game feel more like an action game with horror elements, instead of a horror game. Ordinarily, I like to cover all of the plot before getting into things like combat and visuals and the like for a game, but it's important that I bring up the combat now for a point that will be brought up later as we discuss the plot. Going back to that plot, Alex is then struck by a familiar-looking knife and wakes up from the nightmare in the truck of Travis Grady, the protagonist of Silent Hill Origins. It's a very strange addition. It doesn't really add anything to the plot, but I guess it's a cool cameo? Anyways, he drops Alex off in his hometown of Silent Hill, Shepherd's Glen. So yeah, most of this game actually doesn't take place in Silent Hill, instead opting to have the new setting of Shepherd's Glen. I guess Shepherd's Glen Homecoming doesn't roll off the tongue. We get to walk around the town for a bit as Alex learns many people have gone missing, including both his father and his brother Joshua. He finds his mother, who is in a near catatonic state and barely responds to him. As the story progresses, we see that Alex's parents never treated him well. His mother acted towards him with indifference, and his father was cold-hearted and belittling towards Alex. As such, Alex doesn't show too much distress of his father's disappearance. However, Alex does show to care for his brother Josh, and decides to explore Silent Hill. Just said Silent Hill. Shepherd's Glen, in hopes of finding him. Along the way, Alex finds the town's mayor, Mayor Bartlett, whose son has gone missing. Mayor Bartlett seems to be suffering from some tremendous guilt, but before Alex can get any answers from him, Bartlett is killed by a large monster, which seemed to be summoned after Bartlett sees the watch of his missing son. This happens again when Alex finds Dr. Fitch, whose daughter is missing as well. Dr. Fitch seems to be losing his grip on his sanity and has resorted to mutilating himself. Just like with the mayor, Dr. Fitch is killed by a monster after seeing the doll that once belonged to his missing daughter. I'll give Homecoming credit where it's due. I found the first half of the story actually pretty engaging. There's a good amount of mystery and questions being put towards the player, while still giving enough clues to keep things interesting. It's a very solid setup. As Alex continues to explore the town, he finds hints about some strange ritual that his father seemed to have had a part in, and dark secrets linking back to the town of Silent Hill. Making things worse, a group called the Order break into Alex's home and kidnaps his mother. The Order is a cult originating from Silent Hill, who seem to be playing a part in the disappearances and know about the ritual in Shepherd's Glen. Believing that Josh is in Silent Hill, Alex makes his way to the titular town to find out what the Order is up to and find the answers he's looking for. And it's about here that Homecoming's story utterly falls apart. I'm actually going to be getting into spoilers for Silent Hill Homecoming, including the game's major reveals. If you don't want to get spoiled, skip ahead to the timestamp on screen. Okay, going into spoilers in 3, 2, 1. So Alex sets off to Silent Hill with his childhood friend Elle and Deputy Wheeler, two people that he found throughout his journey of Shepherd's Glen. Before they even reach Silent Hill, the Order manage to sneak up on the trio with a motorized boat, and Alex gets knocked unconscious. Upon waking up at Silent Hill, Deputy Wheeler gets in contact with Alex, saying he has been locked up in a prison cell by the Order and needs Alex's help getting out. This part is really minor for the story and probably isn't worth mentioning, but this part baffled me so much that I have to talk about it. Wheeler tells Alex that he's been captured by the Order and is being held in a cell at the town's prison. Yet despite this, the Order didn't feel the need to take away his walkie-talkie? I could maybe believe that the Order members overlooked this when capturing him, but that's not the case, as we'll see later. Wheeler then starts giving Alex perfect directions on how to get to the prison, as well as the power plant to turn off the prison's electrified gates, despite Wheeler clearly stating in the last cutscene you saw him in that he's never been to Silent Hill before.
What do you mean?
Silent Hill is what I mean. The place has bad history. Always has.
You been there?
Didn't need to. I heard enough.
Does he have a map? How the hell does he know this? To make matters worse, when you go into the prison and get to Wheeler's cell, you can see he's being guarded by two members of the Order, which means the whole time Wheeler has been imprisoned, giving you directions, the Order members are right there, watching him speak into a walkie-talkie and just letting Wheeler give Alex directions to stop their plan. The whole sequence is just so stupid, and it took me out of the experience because of it. And yeah, that's another thing. At this point in the game, many of the monster encounters in Homecoming have been replaced with fighting human enemies. Ah yes, the scariest monster of all, man. Seriously, who thought this was a good idea? If I wasn't scared before when I was fighting monsters, I'm sure as hell not gonna be scared fighting some Joe Schmoes wearing oven mitts and holding a steel pipe. At this point, it feels like the game has just given up, and honestly, so have I. But anyways, you get Wheeler out of the cell. As Alex continues, he is once again transported to the other world, where Alex watches his mother die and finally finds his father. And it's here that we get our first big reveal of the game. Alex's father tells Alex that he, in fact, was not a soldier, but instead has just been in a mental hospital all this time, with Alex's dog tags actually belonging to his father. This twist sucks. First of all, Alex encounters many people who knows him as he explores the town of Shepherd's Glen, both friends and family alike, yet no one ever mentions the fact that he's been in the hospital? Not even his own mother? Also, remember how I mentioned earlier that the reason why Alex is so proficient at combat was because he was a soldier? Well, it turns out that this now makes zero sense, because Alex was never a soldier and he had no combat training. The excuse the developers made as to why the game has a greater action focus doesn't even make sense in the context of the narrative. So not only have I been taken out of the game's story, but now I'm even taken out of the combat system. So before anything could be said about Josh, Alex's father is then killed. As Alex continues through Silent Hill and puts a stop to the Order, it's revealed that the ancestors of Shepherd's Glen were originally residents of Silent Hill, who left in order to escape the town. However, in order to keep the influence of Silent Hill at bay, the ancestors of the 4 founding members of Shepherd's Glen would need to sacrifice one of their children. This included Mayor Bartlett, Dr. Fitch, Elle's mother, and Alex's father. However, Alex's father somehow messed up the ritual, which caused Silent Hill's influence to finally start affecting the town. This reveal I actually kind of liked. The idea of needing to perform a horrible ritual to protect the rest of the town, while also seeing the effects this ritual took on those who needed to kill their own children, was actually pretty interesting and handled decently well. And the fact that the ritual failing was what caused all of the strange happenings around Shepherd Glen is really cool. However, that's the only praise left for the game's story, as we get to the final reveal. Reaching the final boss, Alex remembers a memory he kept locked away. Josh, the brother we spent all game looking for, has been dead this entire time, as Alex accidentally killed him many years ago when the two of them got into an argument while out on the lake. See, Alex's father had chosen Alex to be the one to be sacrificed, so he treated Alex poorly during his childhood to make it easier on himself when it would come time to kill his son. However, after Josh's death, he couldn't bring himself to sacrifice Alex, as he didn't want to lose both of his sons. Meanwhile, Alex deluded himself into thinking Josh is still alive and that he can still save him, which resulted in him going to the mental hospital. Alex finally makes peace with the death of his brother and leaves Silent Hill, thus ending the game. The problem with this twist is that to anyone playing the game, it's so obvious that Josh is dead. Every time Alex encounters Josh, he's either running away, acting antagonistic, or is just appearing in places he shouldn't be. Honestly, it would have been more of a surprise if Josh was really alive by the end of this. Also, despite this being the biggest reveal of the game, I just didn't care. We were given so little time seeing Josh and Alex interact with each other outside of 2 very short flashbacks. You don't really get the sense that Alex loves his brother as much as the game seems to imply, which makes me not really care. It makes the reveal fall flat, making for a dull end to a not great story. So yeah, the story of Silent Hill Homecoming misses the landing by a long shot, despite what I thought was a pretty interesting setup. And for a series known for having such fascinating stories, reveals, and lore, that's just disappointing. Now, when you do beat the game, depending on which ending you get due to certain moral decisions you make near the end of the game, you'll unlock an alternate costume for Alex. While I personally don't feel inclined to replay this game, I will admit it gives a decent incentive to replay the game and try and get a different ending, and thus get a different costume. As disappointing as the story was, there is more to a Silent Hill game than just its story. Silent Hill also has moments of exploration and puzzle solving, which I think this game does fine. Exploring Shepherd's Glen admittedly isn't all that interesting, as it has wide areas full of nothing to interact with and not many rewards for going out of your way to look around the town. The town doesn't have that many landmarks either, so each road within Shepherd's Glen just felt the same as the last, making the sections where you're walking around town feel tedious, despite the fact that these segments are really not all that long. Once the game gets into more focused dungeon areas, it does get better. The player is usually rewarded for looking around in the form of health items, and the areas never felt too long to the point that they overstayed their welcome. The variety of places you visit, while nothing particularly original to Silent Hill, keeps areas from feeling too samey and keeps things interesting enough as you go along. The puzzles were also decent as well. I don't think any of them particularly stumped me, but they offered a good diversion from the combat and exploration, and they did what they needed to do perfectly fine. The game's enemy designs were a mixed bag as well. I found most of the minor enemies to have pretty weak designs, the Needlers and Schisms especially looking bland. And the enemies that weren't uninteresting were enemies that they brought in from previous games, just placed there as fan service. The first enemy we encounter in the entire game are one of the sexy nurses from Silent Hill 2. For those who don't know, in Silent Hill 2, the nurses were designed to symbolize a very specific aspect of the psyche of that game's protagonist, James. Here, there are connections that can be made between the nurses and Alex, but it just lacks the deep meaning present in Silent Hill 2 and lessens the impact that these enemies once had. And of course, we can't ignore the giant butcher's knife wielding elephant in the room, Pyramid Head, or as he's called in this game, the Boogeyman. Just like with the nurses, Pyramid Head represented a very specific part of James' psyche, not Alex. Here, it just feels like he was included because the developers thought, it's Pyramid Head, everyone loves Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head is barely even in the game, appearing in only 2 scenes and one of the game's endings. It feels so shoehorned in as a cheap way to get fans to buy the game, and his presence is far more distracting than it is exciting. I will say though, I thought all the bosses in this game had really solid designs. All the bosses had appropriate themes to what they were meant to represent in the narrative, without feeling too over-designed. The boss fights were not too bad either. None of them were particularly difficult, but they actually encouraged me to time my dodges and play a bit more carefully, since I couldn't just stun lock them with my knife combos like the more common enemies. The fight against Scarlet in particular was a pretty fun time. So yeah, credit where it's due, the bosses have some great designs and engaging fights to go with them. Moving on to the visuals, graphically I think this game looks fine overall. Alex's model looks pretty good, and the environments have a lot of detail which gives a good sense of atmosphere, both in Shepherd's Glen and while in the other world. The only thing I don't like though is this game has this grainy filter over everything, which kind of resembles static from a TV that I thought was just ugly to look at, and I'm honestly not sure why they decided to add it in the first place. Also, despite some characters having decent looking models, there are other characters that just look weird. Their faces have so little animation to them, and it kind of looks like some parts of them are just 2D. I don't know, they just lack depth on their faces, and it doesn't look good at all. There are also some really odd moments with the lighting. For the most part, it does its job. There are shadows where they need to be, and environments can be very dark to encourage the use of your flashlight. However, during some cutscenes, the lighting can cause characters' eyes and teeth to become a solid black, and it makes characters look really creepy. This is more of a minor complaint, as it didn't happen too often, but when it did, woof. Now, the music of Silent Hill Homecoming was actually quite excellent. The music was made by series veteran Akira Yamaoka, who has done the music of all prior Silent Hill releases. Akira has a talent for making soundtracks that are both atmospheric and provide good ambiance, while still giving each piece some sort of beat to it, which in my experience is very rare and hard to do. The only other series I can think of off the top of my head that succeeded in that was the Metroid Prime trilogy. My personal favorite tracks in the game were Witchcraft, which played within Alex's home, and Scarlet, which plays during the boss fight against the track's namesake. The last thing I want to talk about is that I did run into a handful of glitches during my playthrough. My first glitch was when I was in the sewers, and as I was changing weapons, I suddenly lost all of them. Like, they were still present in my inventory, but I was unable to equip any of my weapons, leaving me defenseless. Thankfully, they were restored after the next cutscene triggered, but due to certain weapons sometimes being required to proceed, this glitch does have the possibility of soft-locking your game. The next 2 glitches were more funny than problematic. The first one was I dodged into 2 enemies, and then they kind of just dropped dead when I did. Wheeler was beside me with a weapon when it happened, so it's possible he shot them, but there was no sound effect at all, so I honestly have no idea. Finally, when I was fighting a Needler, one dropped down on Alex's head and died instantly, and his corpse just kind of floated there, which admittedly was probably the one time I smiled while playing this game. During my first playthrough of this game all those years ago, I didn't encounter any glitches, so I'm not sure if the glitches I encountered were common, or if I just got unlucky this time around. They sure were funny though. Silent Hill Homecoming is a heavily flawed game. The story falls on its face despite a good setup, and the combat just isn't fun. It has perfectly serviceable otherworld segments, and even throws a couple fun boss fights the player's way. But these just don't do enough to make me think it's even worthy of being called good. If I'm being generous, I'd say the game is passable. Everything functions fine, and I didn't completely hate my time with this game, but that's the best praise I can give it. Unsurprising to many, Silent Hill Homecoming will be taking the number 9 spot at the very bottom of my ranking. Avengers Battle for Earth may have been dull, but there was hardly anything about it that I would describe as bad. I can't say this was the case with Silent Hill Homecoming, and so it will be maintaining our bottom place for the time being. I know I've been getting a lot of Xbox 360 games for this ranking, but I swear I own other game consoles. In fact, next time we'll be looking at a game that I own for both the Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation Vita. It's going to be a visual novel, though it's one that actually has some gameplay mixed in. In the meanwhile, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, and may we see each other again when we turn to the next chapter in the Tome of Silver.